Greetings, everyone. This is Rock and Roll Spell Country with another installment of Mutant Monday. So this week, rather than unlike the last 2 weeks, and probably the next few weeks as well, we've got two books to look at. We've got the second issue of 10 Lives of Wolverine, as well as the first issue of the Sabretooth miniseries. So we'll start off, however, with 10 Lives of Wolverine, number 2. And I showed this off in a roundup, in a weekly comic book roundups, but yeah. Got a variant cover too. It's Wolverine in his Team X uniform, which is actually kind of important to the story, or to the particular issue's story. So yeah. Anyway, where we left off, Wolverine had prevented Omega Red from killing Xavier as he was born, by a form of mental time travel similar to what was utilized in the classic story Days of Future Past. Powering us along are both Xavier and Jean Grey. But 10 Lives number 1 ended with Omega Red having defected from Krakoa back to Russia, and Wolverine finding himself in the middle of a Team X, having his modern self taking over his past self during a Team X operation in Colombia. So this issue starts in the year 1900 in northern Canada. Logan was fighting a bear in a pit when his modern self takes over. He tosses one of the onlookers into the pit and escapes. Jean warns him to be careful. He doesn't, kind of, the idea, be careful. Like there's a trope when it comes to time travel. Like if you were to travel back in time to the time of the dinosaurs and you stepped on a bug, potentially speaking, stepping on that bug could change the entire history of the planet. But he's got a crew of sled dogs, and he's going out to save Xavier's grandfather. Another point that he's traveled to is his time in the Jasmine Falls of Japan with his wife Itsu. Itsu is also the mother of Wolverine's son, Daken. But Omega Red is possessing her. But on to Colombia. Jean's astral form manages to lead Logan to where he needs to go to save Xavier. Turns out Xavier's there to protest deforestation, but and Logan tells Jean that when it comes to all the thing he's done, going over the whole. I've done a lot of terrible things, but if there's one point in my life I really hate more than anything, it's when I was with Team X. And he goes on to add that he remembers a bit about this particular operation, and that afterwards they basically go to all the indigenous villages, kill everyone, a bunch of the surrounding indigenous villages, kill everyone as a means of saying, fear the U.S. government more than you fear the cartels. But Logan is now determined to save both the indigenous peoples that him, Maverick, and Sabretooth murdered, as well as Xavier. We get a flashback to Russia, a more recent flashback. Turns out that Omega Red was given a trial run to be a part of X-Force. And so Wolverine, Domino, and Omega Red go to the so-called Moscow Hellfire Club to speak with a the head of it, Maxim Ivanov. Well, it's not actually after the Hellfire. That's actually the bathhouse. But Omega Red goes in to take Ivanov into custody. Just bring him in alive so we can, for interrogation. However, Ivanov's not there. But Mikhail Rasputin is. He wants to talk with Omega Red. Even going so far as to turn off the surveillance device that was inserted, that was implanted into his new carbanium synthesizer. Basically saying, they don't trust you. There's an entry in Sage's logbook about Omega Red's suspected defection. The recent history, his asylum request, the acceptance of his asylum request, the fact he was a sleeper agent of the Vampire Nation, resurrection, and now trial agent of X-Force. On-island assault on the hatchery, which left Egg injured and currently recovering in the healing gardens, and the hatchery database breached. Then, apparently, the gate leading to Red Square was utilized. The analytics state that the hatchery database breach focused on Omega Red's records. This was immediately followed by a brazen escape to Moscow, indicating a casual relationship and an intention never to return. The suspected motive they're guessing, but basically Beast terminated Red, and he was resurrected with memory wipes and a surveillance tracker. Primary question is, how did Omega Red know to look? Probable answer is the Cerebro sword, which was stolen by Mikhail Rasputin during a while back in X-Force. We get there's an explanation of the Cerebro sword. All Cerebro units are connected to the same biotech network. The Cerebro sword is Unit C3. Damaged by gunfire and Xeno assassination on Xavier. Sculpted by Magneto into the shape of a sword. Stolen by Russian nesting dolls and delivered to Mikhail Rasputin. Its status is damaged, missing, and online. The connection is weak and sporadic, but a shivery interface remains. Location indeterminate. Closest approximation is 100 square miles of Siberia, or 1,000 square miles of Siberia. Conclusion is that Mikhail has weaponized the information culled from the Cerebro sword to recruit Omega Red in his campaign against Krakoa. Action items are to alert Xavier and run analytics on the Cerebro sword connection. But back in 1900, we catch up with Xavier's grandfather, who's the captain of. It's not a whaling vessel, but same basic concept. They're going after SEALs. But Omega Red possesses one of the crew who attacks Xavier. He's thrown overboard, which leads to what looks like a mutiny. However, Omega Red has shifted into has moved to one of the other crewmen, and is fomenting a potential mutiny, while Wolverine tries to get there as quickly as possible. We have another entry from Sage's logbook, The Broken Calendar. Subject is timeline aberrations. Problem, Cerebro memory file corruptions. Backup defense. We have, since the beginning, accounted for timeline terrorism, the possibility that someone would try to undo us before we ever realize ourselves as a nation. I was asked by the professor to build a chronomathematical program that would flag any alterations to memory files, indicating an assassin or architect was at work in the past. Source, the Cerebro sword. Currently, she's collating evidence. Immediate action items are that Professor Xavier has dared to uplink the C5 unit with the C3 unit, the Cerebro sword, in order to track all movement. The task force was initialized, consisting of Marvel Girl and Wolverine. Back in Colombia, Logan meets back up with Team X, shoots to Maverick to wound him, and just basically does what he can to bring Creed down temporarily. resulting in in Logan stabbing Creed. But Maverick is wondering what's going on, and Wolverine police states that he's better than this. And he's not going to kill Maverick. He explains that the cartel knows trouble's brewing, and they'll be headed this way. Maverick's a little perturbed that Logan's going to leave him there, but Logan states that Maverick's always been a survivor. And suggests that Maverick get out of the game while he can. However, Sabretooth's pissed and intends to kill Wolverine. Back with Itsu, she's possessed by Omega Red, and this is probably one of the harder tasks that Logan has to undergo, as with everyone else, there's a good chance he could potentially just, kill him. With Itsu, it's a bit harder because, one, the emotional connection. When Wolverine is in full possession of his faculties, it is incredible. He will do everything possible to avoid harming those he cares about. He has, for example, there have been times where, an example, not from the comics, but in X-Men 3, he did stab Jean Grey because that was the only way to stop her. Similarly, during, I don't recall if it was in an issue of Uncanny X-Men that was running concurrently to Grant Morrison's X-Men run, or if it was a new X-Men itself. But while Logan and Jean were trapped in space, Logan stabbed Jean to basically get her to Phoenix up, so they could get out of there. They get back to Earth. But the issue ends with seemingly Logan slashing at Itsu in a manner that is definitely harmful. Another reason Logan has to be careful is to not prevent so that Dakin, his son, can still be born. But that is where our issue ends. It's definitely playing out interestingly. I kind of liked that they kind of showed us multiple time travel points in this issue. I would have preferred just kind of focus. I probably would have preferred focusing on the Columbia one, and then with kind of each issue kind of being like, okay, we're focusing on this one, and he goes through that, and at the end he goes to another point. But I'm not the writer, so. And honestly, I've got trust in Benjamin Percy to tell a good story, and so far he's been telling good story. He's been doing good in Wolverine's solo book as well as X-Force, and he's doing good with this so far. So yeah. Anyway, as I said, we have another book, Sabretooth, #1. Yeah, so during House of X, Sabretooth was sentenced to the pit for killing humans while on a mission with Mystique and Toad. It's a decision that not many on the council agree with. And in fact, Cypher, Doug Ramsey, Krakoa's voice, is among those that disagrees. So it shows that scene more from Sabretooth's perspective. Also reminding everyone why he's reminding everyone how much of a bastard he is. His thoughts. Look at these clowns. How does Xavier even see out of that helmet? And Magneto passing judgment on anyone is a laugh. I admit, I always liked Purple Thunder's style. The kids' table. They'll always look like they're playing dress-up to me. Merchant and Ivory Productions presents Emma Frost and Sebastian Shaw. And then we got the Rainbow Gang. Can't even look at me, Lenny. In reference to Sinister, Exodus, and Mystique. Lenny being an alias that Mystique utilized in the past, including the time when she and Sabretooth were romantically involved. That alias being Lenny Zauber. If I remember correctly, it was as Lenny Zauber that she gave birth to, that Sabretooth knocked her up with Graydon Creed. But he is sentenced to the pit. And we get a write-up about the pit with questions. First off is, what is this place? That's the first question. The obvious question. Not to be too flip, but it's the pit. That's the what. Where is this place? Now that's the question that knocks my wig back a little more. Where is this place within Krakoa? I mean, Krakoa is a living being, a mutant, just like the rest of us. So I'm thinking through some possibilities. The pit is in Krakoa's belly. It's a living thing, but it doesn't eat. The island siphons energy from every mutant who lives here. So if it's not actually ingesting anything, then maybe the pit is the place where its stomach would be. The pit is in Krakoa's butt. That's where the waste ends up. And that's how some of the mutants' tops up. I would describe... This is from Sabretooth. And that's how some of the mutants' topside would describe me. I mean, I don't think it's right, but you have to at least consider it. The pit is in Krakoa's heart. No, that sounds dumb as hell. The pit is in Krakoa's brain. This one is interesting to consider, like which part of the brain. But then I have to wonder if Krakoa even has a brain. I mean, why am I assuming Krakoa conforms in any way to human physiology? Maybe it's more like a leech, which has 32 brains, or the lungfish, the hagfish, which has 4 hearts. How will I escape this place? Turns out that's the easy part. But basically, we catch up with Creed in a snow-covered forest. He savagely attacks a bear, ripping its face off before the X-Men show up. Nightcrawler, Cyclops, Marvel Girl, Wolverine, and Storm. Marvel Girl does what she can to sedate Sabretooth, but when Cyclops gets close, Sabretooth basically claws Cyclops' face, the top part of Cyclops' face off, including his eyelids, and then basically just uses his the fact that he can't control his optic blast, and kills Storm, Jean, and Wolverine, while Nightcrawler teleports away, eventually getting up close and sticking his hand in such a manner that his hand materializes inside Sabretooth's chest. But because he's close, well, that's where Sabretooth works best, and he takes a chomp out of Nightcrawler's neck, killing him, and then rips out the hand, holding his own heart. Then finds himself in an interrogation room, and where he's met by Doug Ramsey, DA. Warlock appearing as a briefcase. But Doug explains that he represents the state. And the state feels that Sabretooth has been judged too harshly. But Sabretooth says, he gets it. They all found him while he was comatose and healing after he beat the Furious Five. They brought him to Krakoa and threw him back into the pit. But then Doug interrupts him and says, simply asks him to tell him how he escaped. Creed says, if I tell you, I won't be able to do it again. But Sabretooth explains that, Cypher explains that Sabretooth can't tell him how he escaped because he didn't escape. Which leads to Sabretooth attacking Doug and ripping his head off. And Doug continues to talk. Apparently this is something that's happened on many occasions. Though, and this is not the first time that Sabretooth ripped his head off either. But Sabretooth wants to know how he didn't remember their conversations. And Cypher explains that Krakoa thought it would be better if he didn't. It was meant as a kindness. Though Sabretooth says that it sounds more like a con than a kindness, and Cypher explains that Krakoa won't do that again. And apparently he's being offered a bargain, though. Krakoa can't free Sabretooth, but if he signs the deal he's been brought willingly, Krakoa will grant him some mental freedom, and he won't forget. Then Creed says, "So my mind stays free, but my body stays in jail." And Doug says, "Until the council changes its mind, it's the best they can do. It's an act of mercy." But and Creed even says, "What if I say no?" And Cypher explains it. Then Krakoa leaves him to the fate that Xavier decreed: alive but immobile, aware but unable to act upon it, forever. But he reads the deal, signs it, and we have another write-up. I think this is actually more for... I'm pretty sure that the What is the Pit and the prison write-up are basically thoughts of Sabretooth's. What is prison for? That seems like a simple question. The hardest ones usually do. To punish, to rehabilitate, to alter? Roman Empire, like the Egyptians, built this prison underground. Prisoners were chained to walls and left in the dark. They were either put to death or sentenced to a lifetime of slavery. Some might become gladiators, a life that only seems glamorous when you watch on a television from the luxury of your couch. The Colosseum, the most famous gladiatorial arena, contained 24 elevator cages, each one operated by 8 slaves working on a winch. This is how the lions, bears, wild boars, and leopards were safely transported up to the arena floor. Whose lives were better? The men who trained to fight the beasts or the ones who worked the elevators? Both were prisoners, both were slaves. Those animals didn't have it too good either. The gladiators weren't all rich. The spectators weren't all rich. People traveled from across the empire, the wealthiest and the poorest, to cheer, drink, and snack on chickpeas, and to watch the prisoners die. Over the years, when California found itself plagued with wildfires, prisoners were sent out on crews to combat the flames. Men, women, and teenage prisoners can all be sent on such jobs. For this work, the prisoners earn about $3 a day. What is prison for? Maybe the better question is, who is prison for? From down here, let me tell you, the answer seems clear. So, in his mind, with his mind free to roam, Sabretooth goes on a killing spree. In his mind. Wipes out the council, rips off Iron Fist's hands, kills all the other feral mutants, and then as he puts it, a funny thing happened. After I killed every enemy, after I tore the guts of every living thing that ever hurt me, I had time to consider what came next, to wonder what I could be when I wasn't the lackey or the heel or the paid assassin. I always prided myself on knowing what I was, but was that true? Maybe I never got to imagine what I could be. And so, we have the first meeting of the Feral Council. The 3 aspects of Sabretooth's psyche. The boy, the beast, and I don't know, the cunning businessman, I don't know, and a cat as well. But the suit and tie wearing Sabretooth says they've killed every one of their old enemies. With the beast saying, drank their blood and chewed their bones. The kid saying they screamed and screamed. Apparently Banshee made the most racket. And it suggested they dream bigger. Victor can go anywhere, do anything. When should it be? And so we get Victor the Barbarian. it's very much basically Sabretooth getting to be Conan. So began the age of Creed the King, who traveled the Pharaoh lands with only his unbreakable blade, Bright Fury, who slayed both beast and man, and where he went, he left the mark of Creed, which is a claw mark. Then came Sabretooth and his Starjammers, the scourge of 7 solar systems. The Akanti, the Shi'ar, the Centaurians, and the Chimelians. Every one of these civilizations fell thanks to the secret machinations of the Starjammers. Basically, they were CIA, but in outer space. On Krakoa, topside, however, Black Tom's starting to see effigies of Sabretooth popping up within the foliage. And it even seemed first one he sees, he seems to move. But I just explained that Black Tom was the first to see Victor Creed that day, but not the last. We have a young blue-skinned violin-playing mutant whose identity I'm not sure of. Blob in the Green Lagoon, and the Morlock ape. This is some pass it off as a trick of the eye, a flash of light in a dark corner. Others assumed it was simply a nightmare. Sabretooth had started more than a few. Meanwhile, Victor Creed had found the place where he felt most at home. If his body had been thrown into the pit, his mind chose to go even lower. Krakoa finally had a hell, and on its throne, a king. In his version of hell, the Quiet Council is being torn apart by demons. But then, something happened that had never happened before. Something out of Sabretooth's control. Something not altogether unpleasant. Something new. 5 more mutants have been put in the pit. Necra, Madison Jeffries, Oya, Melter, and Third Eye. I'm not unaware of what they may have done to be thrown in the pit. I imagine that to a degree that some of it may have been explored in the currently running digital only X-Men Unlimited comic or digital comic. I am surprised that they didn't simply utilize Danny and Orphan Maker or Toad, all 3 of whom have also been sentenced to the pit recently. But he states that Creed had been told that no others, there would be no others down here with him. He states that it's not, this isn't what they expected to find or what they deserved. But they're right to be scared because no one is going to save them. And he tells them what he's going to do. He's going to practice on all of them, and once he gets real good at putting them through hell, he's going to do the same to every mutant on Krakoa, and that is where the issue ends. The further issues of Sabretooth will not be covered in the roundup, but rather will not be covered on Mutant Monday, but rather just simply in the roundup. So, I think it's a 5-issue miniseries, so we got 4 more to go. But anyway. That's going to do it for now. As always, feel free to like, share, and subscribe. Links to my Facebook, Twitter, Patreon, and PayPal can be found in the description box down below. This is Rock and Roll Spock signing off saying, live long and rock hard.